there is, a significant impact downstream when you start empowering people. We have 100,000 sellers that are Pakistani, that make money in Pakistan, that employ Pakistanis, that were sending and saying thank you, Daraz, for letting us watch cricket anywhere in Pakistan. So it was and I think it goes a lot back to our mission of uplifting communities. For me, the way I look at it is that in these tough times, if you make the foundations of the business stronger, final frontiers in many ways is one of the places where e-commerce has not sort of taken off as much as it has in many parts of the world. So it's it's a matter of time before it does. Our business is still growing. We've grown over about 35-40% in terms of orders in the last year. And we've really been trying to shift our strategy towards becoming a sustainable business. We need to make it very easy for customers to feel that ease, that yaar agar cheez maine mangai aur wo cheez sahi nahi aayi, then I'm protected. I'm going to make sure that, in fact, we pick up products from your house when you want to return it.
Welcome to How Does It Work? This podcast is powered by Tecno. Assalamualaikum everyone, and welcome to another episode of How Does It Work, a podcast by Pakistani. We're in the Karachi studio again. We've got the managing director of Daraz, Ehsan Saya, on the podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks a lot for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this one. We actually had Munib on earlier. I was telling you off air as well.
Yeah, he beat all my questions.
Yeah. So he helped me with the questions. So if you're
if they're tough, I'm going to have to call him.
Yeah, you should call him after if there's anything you found to be too tough. But let's start with generally where the ecosystem is, right? Yeah. So there was a lot of startup, not a lot, but compared to Pakistan, 350 million something is a good amount.
Yeah.
Then there's been issues, etc. in the startup industry. So a lot of startups shutting down. A lot of startups are sort of in limbo.
Yes.
And then where we are is there's a devaluing currency, energy sort of costs are going up, right? And that changes a lot of business models, and that changes and confuses a lot of people as to what happens next. Where we are today, and I don't mean politically, that's not our prerogative, but where we are today as a country, what happens to companies like Daraz and tech in general?
Yeah. Look, I think the last year and a half or so has been overall extremely difficult for the country. And I think a lot of tech companies, it was a very sudden shift from money being free to money just not being available. And usually that happens over very gradually. And this didn't happen gradually because it was so much money being poured in during the COVID areas. Interest rates were at record lows. And then suddenly it all shifted. So when that shift happened, before, when you were in a universe where you kind of said, okay, money's free, I can do everything. This seems like a fun project. Let's do this. This seems fun. Let's do this. This is not economical. Who cares? Let's do it. But suddenly, because it shifted so quickly, it was very difficult to adjust naturally. I think we were a bit fortunate in that obviously we have a strong and supportive shareholder in Alibaba, but also we were a lot more prudent, I would say, earlier on, and we've really been trying to shift our strategy towards becoming a sustainable business, not just a growth business that can't do it for decades. And I was very clear also with my message to a lot of our sellers, and we have over 100,000 sellers that sell on our platform. And I said, if I'm not going to be around in 100 years, then what am I really building? If I'm building a business that, you build a business on my platform and then 2 years later I'm shut, what's the point of this? It doesn't do anything. So when I have to turn my strategy around, when I have to start monetizing in different ways, I was very clear with them as to why we need to do it. And I'm going to, despite us, pushing towards more towards profitability, towards sustainability, our business is still growing. We've grown over about 35-40% in terms of orders in the last year. Customers are still gravitating towards online, and that's natural because it's still in its nascent stage. You asked sort of where is e-commerce? It's very, it's a few percentage points of the retail market. Whereas you look at the countries like Indonesia, which are in the 20% plus. So it's because it's a nascent stage. Even in difficult times, you will capture a little bit more of that pie.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that you guys are moving towards sustainability. How far away is break even for a company like Daraz right now? If you say had no money to fund,
probably about 1.5 to 2 years.
Okay.
And I'm saying that in the more, I think inshallah it'll be sooner than that.
Okay.
And it's a lot of it has been the way it's not just been pushing profitability, but really our strategy has shifted more towards becoming a platform that you want to come to every single day. So imagine that Daraz maybe 4 or 5 years ago, where if you needed a phone, you would show up on our app, and it was generally associated with electronics. Now the association we want is that, okay, I need a T-shirt, I need my groceries, I need a face wash, I need like day-to-day things, whether it's health and beauty, fashion and lifestyle products, grocery items, things that make you come every day, that you need every day. It's actually serving a need for you. And generally, what we've noticed that as we push towards categories that have a higher retention and higher order frequency, we're able to make sure that we continue to push towards that profitability. At the same time, we've been very, very focused on efficiencies in terms of operations. So we've tried to really get that cross section come sooner between how much we're making and how much we're spending.
And what is sort of Alibaba's view on Pakistan as a market? As in, how do they see us? Obviously, you interact with, I guess, corporate for you in this case, right?
Yeah.
What do they see us as? And what are their thought processes on the e-commerce market in general here?
No, that's a very good question. So I'll maybe take a second to also explain what has sort of happened in Alibaba in the last maybe 6 to 8 months, because everyone is, it's a topical point, but Alibaba did a restructuring in which they've split into 6 companies essentially. And one of those companies is called Alibaba International Digital Commerce. Underneath that, there's Daraz, there's Lazada, which is similar to us in Southeast Asia. There's Trendyol, which is a Turkish company, an e-commerce company, AliExpress, and Alibaba.com. And the reason I say this is that collectively, these companies deliver to over 200 countries around the world. And so since this restructuring has happened, we're a lot closer to the mothership in some ways. And why that's important is that there's a lot of learnings, a lot of technology that now we're able to just as recently as the last 6 months benefit from versus over the last 5 years, even though we've been acquired by them.
Can you give me an example of such a technology?
Yeah, I mean, look, something like live stream, right? Live stream was something that in Taobao it does, I think, 20% or so. I forget exactly what the numbers of the orders. It's something that we launched here and we took from them. But more than that, we had the AIDC senior management and their C-suite visit Pakistan a week and a half ago. In fact, we took them to Rec Center and Bolton Market. So it was, and so they really got to see that what is e-commerce here, and then in fact
on ground
reality. And then in fact, I had a meeting in China with them last week, and they are very optimistic about our country, because they're, like I said, it's in its nascent stages. There's a lot of things that, of course, need to happen. There's a lot of structural constraints that e-commerce also has in our country, but they're very, very optimistic about it, and it's one of the final frontiers in many ways. It's one of the places where e-commerce has not sort of taken off as much as it has in many parts of the world. So it's it's a matter of time before it does.
You mentioned live streaming. I want to ask a little bit about that. A lot of us were thrilled. And a lot of us were also confused when you started streaming sports, and there's this whole are they now competing with Netflix? How does this work? Is there a streaming company? Will they, so I use this other app called Tapmag. I don't know if you've seen it.
Yeah.
Very good. They also are big sports fans, so I watch it.
Me too.
So did you sort of count that as marketing expenditure to get people onto the platform? Was that a successful experiment?
Yeah.
And is that something you mentioned, that you picked up certain things from Alibaba? Was that something that you guys picked up from there?
Yeah.
Walk me through it.
So I'll tell you why we did it. So when we started launching live stream and we wanted customers to start adopting that, when you watch a seller and you ask a seller a question or you want to engage with them, you should do that through live stream. And customers weren't sort of getting that. It was like, what is this random video that's showing up in the middle? And, who's this guy talking in a very casual and not in a very calculated way? It's almost like, those shopping network sort of thing, right? And just is
it kind of like a shopping network?
In many ways, and it's very funny. In fact, when you when you dissect, and maybe I'll talk about that after, but if you dissect even the influencers that do well on live stream, they're not necessarily the ones that do really well on Instagram. There's guys that you would never imagine would be phenomenal, but they'll sell. They're really good.
Yeah.
So I think that the reason we wanted to do this, we kind of said, okay, now how do we get people to come on live stream? So we had a random idea that yeah, chalo cricket karte hain, you know. And then we were supposed to do this. I don't know if you remember the Pakistan England series that got cancelled.
Yeah.
That was a brutal day because I think it got cancelled. I think it was the day of, right?
They were there.
Yeah.
Like, so was New Zealand, no?
Yeah. I was in New Zealand. Yeah. So and then so when that happened, we kind of said, yeah, when's the next one we can do? So let's try for the World Cup. And then coincidentally, World Cup was happening around 11/11, which we were really trying to promote as well. And we'd never done it. We didn't know how to operate cricket. I mean, I still remember, you know, my CMO operating when even the ads were coming, and we had done everything manually. All of us were in there trying to say, now switch to the match, so we had never done something like this. But it's part of our culture as well. We don't really get afraid of trying something new. I think all in all, alhamdulillah, was a very successful experiment. You know, we learned a lot from it. We did it in a very economical way. We our daily active user base, our monthly active user base tripled in that few months. And I think people really appreciated what we did. It was the first time cricket was given just free. There was no if, ands, and buts. It was
everybody was confused. Like,
it was. Yeah.
Are we being?
But you know, we got videos and pictures from people that were in mountains in Chitral and Hunza that were sending and saying thank you, Daraz, for letting us watch cricket anywhere in Pakistan. So it was and I think it goes a lot back to our mission of uplifting communities. It was kind of one angle to it. It worked well. You know, it really did eventually achieve the goal that it was supposed to, which is to teach people about live stream. And eventually now, you know, you see a lot more people interacting with live stream on our platform.
And have you been given this complaint that I also have? Why aren't you streaming the Asia Cup? Now you've got us hooked to free TV. Now we want it.
It's a good show.
What about the World Cup? Are we
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, I would love to.
Isn't that's kind of like a chicken and egg problem? Now you've given us.
I've given you a little taste.
Yeah. Now we're like, what paper? Like, not paper anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not fun anymore to pay.
Yeah.
I don't know. Hopefully we can. We would love to do it again. I think inshallah we'll a few more tricks up our sleeve. Hopefully.
And on the topic of Alibaba, and if we go back there for a little second, so for a lot of us, we don't understand. So to the layman, what is AliExpress?
Yeah. How
do Daraz? If they're all the same, why are they different?
Why are they different? Yeah, no, that's a very good question. So AliExpress is, you know, it delivers all over the world. It has majority of its presence in terms of operations in China. And they, like, you know, a lot of Pakistanis order from it too, but you can't do a lot of things that you can on Daraz, for example, having cash on delivery. What really is different about Daraz and AliExpress is that we are a local marketplace. We have 100,000 sellers that are Pakistani, that make money in Pakistan, that employ Pakistanis, you know, that are selling Pakistan, that are products that are in Pakistan. You know, so it's not a cross-border business only. Of course, we do have a component of our business that is cross-border. Some things come from China, but majority of our business is sellers in Pakistan. And in fact, 99 is probably a bit high, but 95% of them are all small, medium businesses, people that are operating from a small shop in Zainab Market or from their homes. You know, that's the kind of profile that's operating. Whereas in AliExpress, it's obviously larger companies that are across the border in China.
It's an interesting point that you've raised and sort of goes into what our economic condition is right now. And sort of what I want to understand with you is what I see is no matter how cheap the product might be from China or from wherever, eventually we're going to get to a point where the average Pakistani, someone was on my podcast and he gave me the stat, I don't know if it's true, but he said it's 3,500 per day per household, middle class, right? Yeah. That's what it counts to be middle class in Pakistan. It's about 90K or approximately a month for the whole house. Yeah. Very sad and unfortunate, but with the current conditions, I mean, so we talk about 220 million, 240 million people, however many they may be, and बहुत बड़ी मार्केट है और ये मार्केट से हम ये भी एक्सट्रैक्ट कर सकते हैं, वो भी एक्सट्रैक्ट कर सकते हैं, but if they have little to no income, one, how big is your customer base? And then two, is the future going to be, okay, there's one thing which is now everybody's favorite word, which is export technology, export your people and your goods. And that's fine. But what about a home market, right? Like you guys are focused here. And is the future going to be what I imagine it to be, where we're just going to stop having so much imported stuff? I mean, we'll have to buy local clothes. We'll have to buy
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have local cars, but if we did, we'd start buying local. What do you think of all of this, given the current climate?
Yeah, and look, that's not an abnormal world. Or that's not a world we should be afraid of. In the sense that
China,
I think, and in many ways, I think we need to encourage us to become a manufacturing country. And look, if you look at all successful Southeast Asian countries, look at look at Korea, look at Japan, look at China, look at Vietnam. The starting point for a lot of
our neighbors
was
right?
Exactly. But the starting point was agriculture. Actually, they started with agriculture and really making sure that the small household farmer was up and running.
Yeah.
The second thing they started doing was focusing on manufacturing, but they really had export-driven manufacturing. Whereas the financial system was really trying to incentivize and reward that you actually come up with export products that you can export. So it's very important. It is a buzzword, but it is probably one of the only ways for us to claw out of this hole is to be able to come up with ways. Now it's easier said than done. You need the right sort of quality, but you also need the right incentive systems that people can actually come up and put up factories where they can export. You need to have an incentive system that's not just on a few industries, but across the board that people can actually go ahead and do it. And I think for us as well, when you look at how do you actually start targeting someone that's 90,000 rupees, you have to make sure that you start driving prices lower and lower. And if you start driving prices lower and lower, of course, something that's very relevant is to get locally manufactured products. So we really, in fact, a big chunk of our sellers are actually ones that manufacture things locally, whether it's clothes or lifestyle products, plastic boxes. They'll manufacture it in Pakistan. In fact, I meet a lot of sellers. We, on a monthly basis, we have a bunch of sellers come in, and I spend time with them and really try to understand. And it's actually a lot of them are gravitating towards manufacturing because e-commerce, one of the constraints and one of the reasons it's not been able to blow up the same way as in other countries is that structurally offline still seems to have a competitive advantage over online in some ways until you get to scale. Once you get to scale, then online really becomes very, very, very competitive. So a lot of guys are sort of saying, okay, now let me start vertically integrating and start not just becoming a trader, but I want to start manufacturing. So, this is where I think it's naturally very important is that, in order for e-commerce to grow, is price competition has to be extreme. It has to be cheaper. And especially, look, we live in a market where 100 rupees bachane ke liye, someone might travel 2 hours.
Yeah.
But you might say, well, that doesn't make sense. No, but it does make sense because the money made per hour is lower.
Yeah.
Right. So
not with petrol prices now, but maybe a few months ago or a few years ago.
But so when these structural things happen, I think we will hopefully get more and more local manufacturing. We're noticing it. We're seeing a lot more guys on our platform that are not just traders, but the manufacturers. They're actually going up the value chain. And then hopefully the next step to that is for us as a company, to also find ways to get them to export one day. One day that whole universe of 200 countries it should have Pakistani products.
And the local manufacturers that you meet often, how are they feeling about the current economic climate? Are they still making money?
Yeah.
Are there some stories you could tell us about, people and the experiences they've had on as sellers on Daraz, just to get an idea of, how that e-commerce world works?
Yeah. No, that's and it's actually, to be honest, if I really dissect the heart of our business, it's the seller. And every year we have something called a seller summit. Karachi mein karte hain, Lahore mein karte hain, and then we do small ones across the country. And in each of those events, we have about 3,000 to 4,000 sellers. And, our team stays there until the last seller leaves. We talk to every single seller and really try to understand. And last year was very interesting where we had a host and he asked people, and this was not orchestrated, he asked people about their businesses on Daraz. And you would be afraid to think that, well, how could this go any way?
Yeah.
But every single person, with the exception of one, I don't know, he was selling Tilgoze or something, I forget what he was selling, but every other person that their business was doing phenomenally well on Daraz and growing very, very quickly. And so for me as a person who was, responsible for this business, this was very, very fulfilling. In fact, I was leaving and this lady stopped me and she said, "Beta, main aapse baat kar sakti hu?" So I said, "Of course." She said, "I just wanted to tell you my story." So she said, I started selling on Daraz because I had brain cancer and I couldn't leave home. She said, today, when I started, I did it. I used to do it myself. Today I have a team in Karachi. Last week, I started a team in Lahore, and on the weekends, I educate girls that are in the neighborhood on how to sell on Daraz.
Wow.
And that's the power of e-commerce. If you look, we have 100,000 sellers on our platform. There was a study done in India that maybe 3 to 5 jobs are created, but let's say even 2 jobs are created. That's 200,000 jobs in this economy.
Yeah.
There is, a significant impact downstream when you start empowering people. When people, at the end of the day, when people have hope, they can do anything. And what really becomes the most difficult conversation nowadays is that hopelessness.
Yeah.
And so you give
Not having the answer.
Yeah. So if you say, I have a path. We say, work honestly, work hard. We will teach you end to end through Daraz University. We teach them everything: how to take a picture, how to write a description. What sort of product should you sell? End to end, we try to hold a seller's hand to make sure that they can provide that same equivalent as customer experience to the customer, right? So, and I think that's really the beauty of our platform, is that you hear sell. Honestly, when I heard that story, I was like, that's it, man. My year is, I'm done for the year. I'm happy, now.
And you said something really, actually, which ties into my next question really well as well. Last few podcasts that we've done here in Karachi with different people, including Munib, have said something that I found really interesting. Different walks of life, film directors and whatever, doesn't matter, right? The thing that they were talking about is that it's going to get worse, right?
Yeah.
The current situation is going to get worse.
Yeah.
Accepting that, it has to get worse for it to get better, because we would be pushed towards local goods and we'll be pushed towards lots of things. And then one of the other parts that a lot of people raised is, it was when Bangladesh, I think Munib said this, I'm not sure, but when Bangladesh got worse, the family income per household, like we just mentioned, was 90,000 and needed to go up to be able to survive.
Yeah.
That's when they allowed their women to work.
Yeah.
That's when that change came for women to enter the workforce. The story you just mentioned as well, where maybe they can become Daraz sellers by sitting at home. So you're giving a working or like a mother an option to stay with her children, but also somehow increase revenue for the household. And as unfortunate as our economic condition is, the silver lining sort of becomes that it may push us towards e-commerce. It may push us towards women empowerment.
Yeah.
What is your view, and how does Daraz sort of help women in the workforce?
Yeah. So today, believe it or not, 30% of our sellers are females.
Oh, wow.
Across 100,000.
30%?
30%.
That's significant.
It's huge.
Yeah.
And 20% of those women are outside of Karachi, Lahore, and Islamabad.
Really?
So so it's it's not just in the main cities.
What sort of business do they do?
There's different categories they can sell, and a lot of them actually do like fashion, health and beauty, those sort of products. But they're able to, because they have the ability to run their business from their household.
Yeah.
They get a big chunk of orders. We give them 24 hours to get it fulfilled. Maybe at the end of the day, the husband comes home, they give it and they say, "Ye hab pe jaake drop kar do." Or if they need, we can pick it up from them. We've done a lot of programs actually to encourage women, because I think when we really dissect our mission, right, uplifting communities through the power of commerce, you cannot uplift communities unless you uplift its women.
Yeah.
When you look at this one female seller I talked to you about, right? She had a team in Karachi, she has a team in Lahore. What is she doing on the weekends? She's educating more girls.
Yeah.
Only women do that.
Course.
Right? It's that
they stick up for one another.
Exactly. And so they really uplift a community.
Yeah.
And so I think we've introduced programs, for example, where we waive commissions for women. We've really tried to make sure that we find ways that we can actually get more and more women on our platform. And then from the employee side, it's equally important as well. We've done a lot of things in our office, and whether it's giving transportation or extra menstrual leaves for women, or daycare, or maternity leave, trying to do everything that mothers are very valuable members of our society, and oftentimes it's very difficult for them to come back to the workforce. How do we make sure that it's easy? In fact, recently I hosted an event at the office where I had all the mothers of female employees come to the office, because I wanted them to see the impactful work their daughters do, or their daughters-in-laws do, and it was very shocking for them that I didn't know that's what she was doing. And so it's we try to do a lot of programs, because at the end of the day, you need employees that are empowered women, you need sellers that are empowered women to be able to address the need of empowered customers who are also women, right? So it's really been a mindset shift. But at the end of the day, that's what the beautiful thing about e-commerce is. is that it really can empower, very deep, and it's very agnostic to where you live, what you do,
Who you are,
who
whatever.
you are. Startup costs are low, so you just need to work hard and be honest, and then you have platforms that can uplift you.
And I think, keeping on that point, there was a craze, and we work with the Alibaba.com side of
Yeah.
business, right? So there's a craze in the middle where Amazon set up a net,
Yeah.
everybody's tried to open a Delaware company in America and the UK, right?
Yeah.
I think because of our current condition, a lot of people will, instead of trying to do some drop shipping in the US that very little about, and you've seen a course for a few $100s,
Yeah.
they can maybe focus on a much larger market, a local market. And I think that sort of, if one thing I've taken away from this Karachi trip and the podcast is that the silver lining is, look, it's going to get worse.
Yeah.
But that's necessarily not a bad thing, because we will be shifted towards getting to where we need to go. And I think that there was enough things holding us back to stop that. But if I was to sort of continue on that point, there was a startup ecosystem, right? And we started with that as well. The $350 million came in, lots of things happened. We came at the tail end of it. It's kind of like dried up now.
Yeah.
Do you see the venture capital space to be sort of different now? Does Daraz plan on maybe expanding, like Alibaba did, into multiple different things? Is that on the agenda?
Yeah. The venture capital space is different. Primarily, if we go back to the cost of capital, right? It's at the end of the day, the more expensive capital becomes, the more naturally you have to think about what are the projects you want to invest in, because you have an ROI. When money was 1%, you could kind of say, okay, if I make 5% ROI on this, hell with it, let's do it. But when money is not 1% anymore, 2% anymore, you have to rethink the way you do your business models, and rightfully so in some ways, right? I think it's important that you have to tighten your buckle in tough times. We have done that. I think a lot of companies should do that. And because for me, the way I look at it is that in these tough times, if you make the foundations of the business stronger, when the tide does turn, you will really be able to take advantage of it. So, yes, it's, the venture capital space is more difficult. But it's also made us become stronger businesces, because you've had to.
Yeah.
You
to adapt.
You had to adapt, and you kind of had to say, okay, well, I don't want to shut shop. So what do I need to do? And it allowed you, and it forced you to say, I really don't want to do this, but I have to do it. Okay, fine, let's do it. And then you adapt it again. And then you adapt it again. You did something else, you adapt it again. And then sometimes you made mistakes. We made plenty of mistakes. We still make plenty of mistakes. But then we make a mistake and we'll be able to take a step back and say, okay, this we shouldn't have done. And I think that's been the beauty of it as well, is that, yes, difficult times are tough, but the venture capital space, I don't think is going to get any easier in the short term. I don't think interest rates are going down.
Yeah.
In the short term, forget in Pakistan, but even globally, they're not going down.
Not
right?
for a while.
Yeah. So, commodity prices are still difficult, and there's still food supply shortages. So it's not going to get easier. But in these difficult times, it really forces you to think outside the box more, take steps that you would not have been comfortable taking, because now you have to. And I think that has helped us become a better and stronger business. And when we think about how do we want to scale and continue to scale, naturally the same criteria comes in, is that I can't do everything. But what's great is that you shouldn't do everything. You should focus in your approach in terms of growing. If you are, when it was all very easy, when money was free, you can do everything. But it's not necessarily good for the business to do everything. It's kind of like, yeah, ye bhi kar raha hai, I need my market share, let me do this too. But in these times, you're going to say, okay, well, this doesn't make sense. Nah, not going to do it, right? Let me do the right things for the business. Let me build a strong foundation. So I think, these things, like I said, really building a supply chain that has strong pricing, that has very category-driven experiences, that, the way you buy electronics is not the way you buy fashion or grocery. Right? So that experience has to be catered accordingly. You might buy something, you do buy something very differently. So I need to offer you a different experience in each of those categories. And I think that focus on customer experience for us is paramount, to make sure that if you're not happy with something you bought, the refund is easier, the refund is faster. All of those things are really, foundational to building an ecosystem in which you say, I can trust buying online. I can trust buying on Daraz. And if things go bad or something doesn't work out, or if I don't get exactly what I thought, I can return it and I'll get my money back. And that ease in your mind is then how people will start gravitating towards something like e-commerce.
A lot of people, have this problem कि यार हम कुछ मंगाते हैं, कुछ और मिल जाता है. In Pakistan में, all e-commerce related businesses struggle with this.
Yeah.
कि क्या होता है कि यार वो seller ने गलत चीज़ कर दी, उसने ये दे दिया. The other thing, unfortunately, ये भी है कि पाकिस्तान में ना ट्रोलिंग ज़्यादा होती है, facts कम होते हैं. We like to I always give people this example. We have an agency.
Yeah.
And I was trying to send someone the address, so it had reviews on Google. So I read the reviews, and somebody gave me a 1-star review. Food was not up to the mark. And I'm like, but we're an agency, like. I was like, कौन सा खाना भाई आप वापस आओ यार. I'll give you a refund. लेकिन what I'm trying to say is कि चलो वो तो है ना. There is unnecessary amounts of trolling. But how do you improve quality control, right? The sellers in Pakistan or in the world, right? They need to be trained in a certain manner. They need to be sort of slapped on the wrist as well, just to make sure that these are new. So what steps do you guys take?
And you made a very interesting footnote point. You said Pakistan and the world. So the problem that's there of quality is not just Pakistan.
So don't everywhere.
We might think that Pakistan में ज़्यादा होता है, क्योंकि हर जगह अगर अभी नहीं होता तो होता था.
And as until very recently.
Exactly. जब markets mature होती हैं तो फिर ये चीज़ें बेहतर हो जाती हैं, क्योंकि seller सीखता है कि यार अगर मैं एक चीज़ बेचूंगा और वो प्रोडक्ट सही नहीं हुआ तो कस्टमर ना तो मुझसे वापस लेगा, ना तो और फिर उसके साथ साथ मुझे पेनल्टी भी लगेगी, और मेरी जब रेटिंग कम हो जाएगी तो मैं और भी चीज़ें नहीं बेच सकूँगा. तो वो एक दफ़ा करेगा, वो आइंदा बोलेगा this doesn't make sense.
And sorry, just to give you like an anecdote, Dubai, for example, right? Fantastic in terms of e-commerce now. 5-6 years ago, I go there 4 or 5 times a year. 4 or 5 years ago, horrendous, right? I mean, not horrendous, but just a lot worse there.
Definitely.
2012, I used to live in China, and I give this example. That's the first time I discovered what cash from delivery was. Because before I used to live in the UK, then I moved to China, and then I was like, what's cash from delivery? Because Pakistan में था ही नहीं, और UK में card पे होता था सब कुछ. And then over there at that time, I remember buying David Guetta tickets, and they were fake. And Alibaba, now the kings of the world, right? At that time was not what it is today. It was different. It evolved. But the sellers, like, how do you control quality?
100%. So of course, as they mature, you have to do a lot of things. So the way I look at this is this is the sandbox I want you to play in. If you play in the sandbox and you play nicely, you're welcome to play with us. But the moment you're not going to play nice, you're out of this box. And how do I make sure that box is governed? So we make sure that, if, for example, you have 24 hours to fulfill a product, if you get an order, you have to fulfill within 24 hours. You have to get it to our hubs. If you take longer, there's a penalty that's applied on you. There's, you get points every 2 weeks, and then there's a scorecard that kind of says, okay, listen, your quality, when you sent something, the customer returned it and said the quality was bad. We checked it, and it was in fact. So we're going to apply a penalty, and it's going to hurt your scorecard. Because your scorecard isn't hurt, if it's just a few items or under a certain threshold, we will put you back in Daraz University and make you go through courses again.
Is Daraz University free?
Daraz University is entirely free. We educate 5,000 sellers for free every month.
Okay, that's amazing.
Yeah, and then if let's say you continue not understanding, and then we delist you permanently. So and then throughout the way we'll look at specific products and SKUs, see if they need to be delisted. So our teams are always, but of course, things always fall through the cracks. And then customer, but the point is, while you govern the sellers, the customers need to still be assured that I'm not going to get screwed. Every month we spend upwards of $50,000 on refunds where we don't even take the product back. We kind of say, you had a bad experience, here, take the money, and here's the.
Wait, how do we get this 50,000?
You have to buy on the.
If you guys want to,
but the point is that we need to make it very easy for customers to feel that ease. That यार अगर चीज़ मैंने मंगाई और वो चीज़ सही नहीं आई, then I'm protected. I'm going to make sure that, in fact, we pick up products from your house when you want to return it.
Okay.
Right? So if you say within 7 days, you say, I want to return this, I'm not happy, हम आपके घर पे आएंगे और वो चीज़ आपके घर से लेंगे, and we'll process your refund. And at the same time, we, like I said, we really we put all our sellers into training. We hold them accountable through different point systems, as if there's a return product that has a quality issue, if they take too long to get the product to the customer, all these things, and then we according to that we either promote their listings or demote them.
Makes sense.
And then eventually, if they're really bad, we permanently delist many sellers. I think we last year we delisted about 7,000 sellers, something like that. We kind of said, well, they're not meeting our sort of criteria.
Requirements, yeah.
You have to have a stick and carrot approach, of course. If you just keep beating yourself.
So someone is doing really well.
Exactly.
What do you guys?
So
what happens to them?
One of the brilliant things you're trying to accomplish in e-commerce is that you want to end up on the first page of search. That's how you really, once you've accomplished that, and your business continues to run. So if you have a product that's selling really well, the quality is good, that means you're going to get reviews. That means you're going to get ratings. You're going to get image reviews. You're going to be on your live stream promoting your product and gets to the first page. So when you have a good experience, your product continues to climb. But it continues to climb, you get more and more sales, right? So the idea is that if you don't do well, you get demoted, right? Your product, when someone searches,
but you can make it back up.
But the idea is that from the day one, you want to do well, so it gets to the first page, and you really participating in campaigns, making sure you have attractive pricing, and that way you really become you have a product that continues to sell.
And like Amazon, do people buy accounts from the
So not yet. Okay. But it would be great to actually end up there.
Yeah, right. It's fantastic.
It's really nice.
That just the account itself is like a brand, right?
Yeah,
it has
exactly.
Its own,
absolutely.
That's fantastic.
But I don't think it's happened. I'm sure it's informally happened somewhere, but not that it's come to our attention. But I would love if that people build up a store in that way, and that's actually a monetizable asset.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
So that's great
because they've built an asset.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Exactly.
Actually, tell me about search, right? I was wondering why don't you have like different languages for search? I mean, most of Pakistan may not be able to speak English. Why not have it in Urdu as well? Or, like how a lot of in the UAE or in Arab countries in general, they have like an Arabic and English, depending on what you need. Even China, of course, right? So why not do that?
So I think if you look at English plus Roman Urdu, so our next step would be going towards Roman Urdu.
Take it.
Because it's pretty broadly typed. आपको text भी मिलेगा, आपको Roman Urdu में text मिल जाएगा काफी हद तक. That, if you really dissect the customers that are available in the country, it's not 250 million people or 230 million people. It's really a lot smaller than that. Maybe it's around 50 million people. That base is within English and Roman Urdu. It's largely covered, right? So because if you add too many complexities to it too, it's not just having search in Urdu, but every product has to have something that it can respond to in Urdu.
Of course,
right? The pictures, the campaigns, the banners, everything has to be done in Urdu. And to be able to do that in a scalable way where it may not add to the same level of, of business, it doesn't make as much sense for us right now. Hopefully there comes a day when it does make sense. And we have that, universe which English plus Roman Urdu, is sort of accomplished. And then you go towards written Urdu.
Makes sense. Okay, this is a lot of fun. I've got a couple of last questions and then I'll let you go. One of them is completely just irrelevant. I was wondering.
I saw you smiling, so
so basically, something that I noticed happened a lot was so Jack Ma was here. I know he's not a lot with Alibaba, but Pakistanis would call anyone they knew had anything to do with Alibaba. We're like, did you meet Jack Ma? Jack Ma se mulaqat hui. Jack Ma kya keh raha tha? Did you get such phone calls?
Yeah, मैं तो बस वो नाश्ते के लिए अभी बस निकला नाश्ते. That was my standard answer. अगर आप सुबह दोपहर रात में भी फोन करें, अभी बस निकला ना घर से. But no, unfortunately, I didn't get to meet him either.
So the last question is, can you just explain to us how that, let's call it an acquisition, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So the acquisition for Daraz and Alibaba, what was that story like? Why and how did it happen? Just so that paint us a picture. Like, everybody's dream is to get bought out by something like Alibaba. Right?
Yeah.
Why did that happen?
Yeah, I think at that time, Alibaba's goal was to have 2 billion global customers.
Okay.
There's not 2 billion people in China.
Yeah.
What we were able to offer them was to say, यार हमारे जो 5 मुल्क हैं, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Myanmar, where Daraz is, that's about 500 million people. We can deliver you 100 million customers until by 2030. So that element of globalization, and again, when the acquisition happened, the mindset of globalization was a lot more relevant than, and probably prevalent actually, than it is today, where today it's, let's fix your home first and then figure out what's happening outside. So I think at that time it was this final frontier where you could acquire a significant portion of users and customers where it was not necessarily as competitive, but it came with a lot of issues. A lot of things that you had to solve, a lot of really fundamental issues you had to overcome, foundational issues you had to overcome. So it was always going to be a challenging market. But one thing that they did that was very intelligent was they always had a localized strategy. Like in Pakistan, we have mashallah over 1,300 people now, and everyone is Pakistani, right? Every single person in Pakistan is Pakistani. They're serving Pakistani sellers, Pakistani customers. And I think that time the mindset was that this can really be a frontier that can deliver a lot of users. And I think that is to a large degree when you look at now in this structure of AIDC, Daraz is the sort of the 5 countries of Daraz should be one of the fastest growing ones because they're actually the earliest stage of their e-commerce life. So hopefully we can deliver on that. And as we deliver on that, I think, inshallah, we can contribute to the economy of Pakistan.
Yeah.
Enable more manufacturing here, enable more export from Pakistan, enable more small, medium businesses and job creation here.
Yeah.
And then, to be honest, that's what keeps us going. Is that you can really, when you meet these sellers, meet these customers, we had a customer, actually, I'll just tell you quickly, because I always hear these stories from sellers. That I had, there was a customer who we often have our customers come and talk to us. Guys, shoes aapke, what do you enjoy, what do you not? So this lady came with a well-written, ye sare issues hai mere. And it was so well articulated and structured that we tried to ask her why she's done it. She said, yeah, look, I have an illness and I can't leave home. You need to solve this. I need to be able to get these products because I can't go out of the house. And so, sometimes you don't even realize that you kind of say, yeah, but cheeze bech rahe. No, you're not. You're really changing lives. You're really giving people the ability to rely on themselves. And that is very powerful.
100%. And the thing is, if you look at all these countries, India, China, for example, like you said, most of Southeast Asia, they were able to reach a certain quality standard to export by actually first capitalizing on the local demand in the country. And that is step number one, right?
Yeah.
And hopefully the silver lining of all this petrol and energy crisis and pata nahi kya kuch is ki maybe now we will, right? Yeah, inshallah. It was a pleasure to have you on the.
Very nice talking to you. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Thank you guys for watching. If you like our content, please do subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you for the next podcast.